Most of us might have worked with Oracle databases using MuleSoft. Now, one of the most common errors that we face while transforming the DB records using dataweave is the invalid property name shareBytes on class oracle.sql.timestamp. To resolve this, a common technique is to force the Oracle driver to return java.sql.timestamp, and this can be achieved by setting the JVM property oracle.jdbc.j2ee13 compliant to true. Although this solution works perfectly, it can be quite invasive when a single runtime is shared with multiple applications, which possibly might affect other applications which might rely on Oracle's proprietary data types. So in this video, let's try to work out an alternate solution using Java reflection. We will now try to understand the problem and work out a solution for it. So I have a database select to query the database, and there's a table which I have used in previous video, that's an error DB which has a timestamp column. So we are going to transform that into a JSON, and when we try to do it, we get this error, invalid property name shareBytes. So now let's just have a look at the table. So this is the table, and here is the timestamp field which is created timestamp. So now let's see why does this error occurs. It's mostly because we are getting the oracle.sql timestamp. So what I've done is I've created a Java code which basically fetch the row from the database, right? So what we'll try to do is we'll try to see what is the data type for different rows along with the timestamp ones. So what we understand is created timestamp should be oracle.sql timestamp, and others could be also Oracle's proprietary data format. So let's just try to run this and observe what is the output. So to get an overview of this code, it's basically doing nothing but just creating a connection, and then I'm creating a statement, and using the statement I'm executing a query, and then I'm trying to print the class of the column, what is the data type return. So every data type will be wrapped into a class, and we are trying to output the class. So let me just try to run this Java application and see what exactly is the output. So I'll run this as a Java application, and I should get the output. Alright, so we have got the output. So if we see, ID is of type java.math big decimal, correlation is of type java.lang.string, system name is type string, but if you see the created timestamp, it's of class oracle.sql.timestamp, and also payload is which was a binary large object, that is as well of the type blob, which is an Oracle proprietary timestamp data format, right? So timestamp and blob were Oracle's own data format, other were using Java Lang's format. Now let's have a look at the Oracle's timestamp class. So if we see this timestamp class, and let's search for the method shareBytes for which the data view is complaining. So if we observe, we don't find any occurrences of shared bytes in the method summary as such. It's only there in methods inherited from class oracle.sql.datum, which means that this is a child class of datum. Let's scroll up and see object is the parent of datum, and datum is the parent of oracle.sql timestamp. So this method is being inherited from the datum parent class. So let's just go and check this shareBytes. So here is the shareBytes from the datum class. Let's see the datum class. It extends object. So Datum is basically for the native data types that the driver returns, and this particular method might be called by the timestamp. And now, since this particular share bytes method is not at all present in the java.sql timestamp, and that would be probably the reason why data view transform throws the error. Now, I don't have much visibility to the data views transform, how it internally does the transformation, so that's just an educated guess that I am making, that it probably encounters this share bytes and it doesn't know how to use this because it's java.sql.timestamp, and that's the reason. Now, how do we get rid of this problem? So the objective is we need to convert this oracle.sql.timestamp to java.sql.timestamp. So if we carefully observe the methods present in oracle.timestamp, we encounter this particular method, which is timestamp value. So it says that calls to timestamp to convert internal oracle date to a java timestamp. So that's what we are looking for. So if we go to this method, so it says the same thing, right? It calls to timestamp to convert internal oracle date to the java timestamp. So we'll possibly use this particular method to get a java.sql.timestamp. So now let's go back to the studio and see how it's done. Alright, so back in studio, let's write a code to convert the Oracle timestamp to the java.sql timestamp. So I have created a package com.test and there's a class called as converter. So I'll create a public static method. So let's create a method public static, and this method should return timestamp, and I'll name it as get java sql timestamp, and this will take oracle timestamp. So I'll just keep it generic because object class is the parent class of all, so object can easily have the oracle timestamp. So let me name it as oracle timestamp. Alright, and then to get rid of this compile error for the time being, let me just return null. Okay, so it's still giving, I think it needs to import some packages, which is basically java.sql.timestamp. Let's give this a moment, or what I'll do, I'll manually add it. Import java.sql.timestamp. So that should help us get rid of the compile time error. Okay, now we need to write the logic for getting the SQL timestamp. So how do we do that? So what we have over here is Oracle timestamp, which we know. The runtime doesn't, but we know it, right? So what we can do is we can use reflection to get access to that method. Alright, so how do we do that? We will take that into method type data. So I'll call it as timestamp value, because we are going to access this particular method which is present in this Oracle timestamp, right? So I'll name it as timestamp value equals Oracle timestamp dot get class dot get method. So we'll use this, and I'll just give the method name. So as we saw in the documentation, it's the timestamp value method which we need. So I'll just pass the timestamp value method, and it should be able to return me the method. So it's still giving me compile time error, which means that it's missing out on some import. So let me just import method from java.lang.reflect. Alright, so once I've imported it, I get some other errors. So this is possibly because of the checked exceptions that is thrown by the get method. So let's just hover over it, and if we see, it says unhandled exception type, no such method exception. Alright, so what I'll do is I'll just surround it by try catch. Okay, so it added multiple try catches, because if I would have selected no such method exception first, it would have then asked me for the security. So it can throw two exception. No such method is a checked exception, which means that in case if this method is not found, it has to be handled. So this is how we are handling. I've just taken all the default and also the security errors. So once this is done, this means that I now have that particular method which is declared in the timestamp class. So I have access to that method. Now we need to call this method, right? We need to use this method. So how can we do that? So it's quite simple. I need to call timestamp value dot invoke. Now in invoke, I'll have to pass the instance using which I can call this method. So this is the instance of the class. So to call any method, we need an instance, right? Since it's all object oriented, we need instance. So this is the instance that I'll pass. So I'll use this. So basically this will translate to like something like it's if you are new to Java or might not have much exposure, it basically means something like this. So Oracle timestamp, this is the class, right? So it's I guess it's timestamp. So timestamp ts, where timestamp is type Oracle, and you do something like new timestamp, and this is how we initialize the constructor, and then we call ts dot timestamp value. So timestamp value, so this is exactly what is being done here. So this ts is the instance that we get, and we are getting it from this Oracle timestamp. So we are passing the instance, and now using reflection we have got access to this method. So using this method, we are using invoke of the type method, and we are getting access to that method. So this would return us a value, but now it's asking to handle some exceptions. So let's just surround with multi-try catch. So what we observe is it's giving illegal access, illegal argument, and invocation target exception. So these are all the exception that checked exceptions that we might encounter. So we have to handle it. Now what I'll do, for the sake of cleanliness, I'll just remove it from here, and instead I can add it over here, so it looks better. Just clean it. Okay, so all the exceptions are handled. So we can do whatever we want, right, in this catch block, like print some log statement or something in case if this occur, but ideally in this case it won't occur. Alright, so we are invoking, and we will basically get java.sql.timestamp. So we need to return timestamp, right? So what we can do is we can directly return it from here, return timestamp. Now it's complaining. What it's complaining is like type mismatch, cannot convert object to timestamp. Now we know that this invoking this particular method, which is timestamp value, would return us java.sql timestamp, but the runtime does it. So we need to tell the runtime by forcefully typecasting it. So I'll just typecast it to timestamp, and here it is. So we are returning this java.sql.timestamp. Now that we have created this particular method, let's just add a block comment to this, because we don't need this anymore. This might create some conflict because it's a main method. So I'll just add block comment to this, that remove it. Alright, and okay, I have a return statement over here, so it's returning from here as well, so that's not an issue. Okay, so now let's get rid of unwanted imports. So yeah, so we have one import from reflection, which is method, another is invocation target exception, which is to catch the exception, and we have the java.sql timestamp. So now let's try to call this function from the data transform. So now I know that it will be an array. Whatever is coming here from the select, it's an array. So what I can do is payload map object index, and then I'll have to use, okay, I'll have to iterate on the object itself, right? I have to check for this particular value, create a timestamp, because I want to convert only this value. Other values I don't have any issues, it works fine. So I want to convert this particular value, so I'll run a map object on this object. Map object, its value key, let me just do control space so that, okay, it's not giving the prompt, its value. Okay, so value key and index. Now what I want to do is I want to call the convert function only if there is key receive created timestamp, right? So if key as string, because key is a type, so I'll have to convert it into string for me to be able to compare with this string created timestamp. If this key is encountered, I need to convert the value for this key. So I want to call this Java method in this class, right? So Java, this is how we can call. So Java package name com test, then converter, and then what's the method name that we have given? It's get Java SQL timestamp. I'll just call this timestamp and let's pass the value. And else, if that's not the case, we just want key value sent as is. So we are pretty much ready with the code, and now we should not face that error. It should convert the value. So let's quickly try to run this application. Okay, there was some error. Okay, multi-catch statement is not supported in 1.6, use source 7 or higher. Okay, so it's complaining about that this multi-catch statement is not acceptable in this version. So what I can do is I'll just, for the time being, use a throws keyword and just throw it, because I'm not interested in handling this and right now. So okay, we just get rid of this, and so basically it's saying that multi-catch is not possible, which means that I have to write this one by one. So one for illegal argument. So that's kind of annoying. So I've just added throws to the method, so it's unhandled. It will just throw back to the consumer, whoever is consuming. So let me quickly try to run it again. Alright, so the application has got deployed successfully now, and let's try to hit again. So this is the last time when I tried it and it was throwing shareBytes error. Now let's quickly try that again, and we see it's coming successfully, right? And that's the created timestamp we get, 2021 31st July. So that's possibly what we are getting, right? So this is what we are getting. So we have successfully transformed the Oracle timestamp to the java.sql timestamp. So this is how we can transform the value. Now you can probably try to just optimize this logic, like like in this case we have to like push, we'll have to run the map object and then seek created timestamp, right? So which means that we should know which fields will get the timestamp values. So in case if you don't want the developer to be aware of these values, and if you want to make it more generic, like just pass the object, and like for example it's just like instead of if else, just key and value, something like this. It just blindly calls this method. If that's the case, if we want, we can do that as well, but then we might have to make some changes in the logic over here, like we'll have to check the instance. What is the instance? If this object is an instance of Oracle timestamp, then we convert it. If it is not, we just return what it is, like as is, no conversion whatsoever. So we can try that sort of manipulation over here and just improvise this logic. So that we'll see that in the next video. In the next video I'll try to optimize this logic and also make this reusable, so we can create a dependency out of this. Like we'll try to create a custom functions connector for this, and we can just simply add it as a dependency, and one can directly use this method with just adding the dependency. So we'll see that in the next video. I hope you found the content of this video useful. Thanks for watching.